record on this computer. So what I was saying is, for a geometry student that's learning special right triangles, I think this is the best way to remember them. You got a 45, 45, 90 here. You got a 30, 60, 90. Make the shortest side of the triangle 1. For the case of an isosceles right triangle or a 45, 45, 90, that short side is going to be both 1. You got 2 short sides there. The hypotenuse on this thing is √2. Now over here, there's a 2 in the hypotenuse as well, but we're not taking the root of that. And then you've got this side right here to be √3. Memorize these 2 triangles and you can get special rights down pretty quickly. So for instance, let's look at another special right triangle. And this time, it's not going to be those side lengths. Let's say we've got 10 right here for the hypotenuse. Here's the general rules we are going to follow for these. If I've got the hypotenuse, that's blue, I want a different color besides blue. If I have the hypotenuse and I'm going to the short leg, notice what I do right here. I have to divide this by √2 to get back to 1. So we're going to divide by √2. That's how, if I've got to figure out x right here, that's how I'm going to solve for x. I'm going to say, you know what, take that hypotenuse and divide it by √2. Now, most of the time in, Delta Math, your assignments there, I've seen some of the assignments Ms. Anderson assigns. We want to rationalize that denominator, so I'm going to multiply by √2 over √2. And that gives me 10 roots of 2. √2 times √2 is √4, which is 2. And then 10 over 2 equals 5. So we get 5 roots of 2. That's what x is equal to there. But I think it's a super fast way to figure out those side lengths. So that's if we're going from the hypotenuse to the short leg. Now, if I've got another 45, 45, 90, and let's suppose this time, I tell you that the short leg is 3. Well, and I want to know the hypotenuse. And this is a 45, 45, 90. Well, in a case like this, if we're going from the short leg to the hypotenuse, notice what do I do to the short leg to get to the hypotenuse? I must multiply by √2. And so going from here to here, we're going to say multiply that by √2. So you get 3 times √2. And that is your answer for x. Nothing to simplify there. So whatever the short leg is, multiply it by √2 to get the hypotenuse. If you know the hypotenuse and you're going to the short leg, then divide by √2. And I think that's a quick, easy way to know that special right there. Now, this one's a little bit different, not too much more complicated or anything like that, but there's one small thing we got to remember, and that is typically, well, let's look at this. We're going to follow, some same rules here. To go from the hypotenuse to that short leg, instead of dividing by √2, we are going to divide by 2. Or to go from the long leg to the short leg, we divide by √3. So divide by √3. Can I help you?
I think I'm supposed to be on your Zoom call, but I can't get in.
You can't get in. Did you see the link?
No.
Okay, so what I did, if you look, let's see, here is Canvas. If you go to your Mrs. Anderson's class, right?
Yes.
If you click on Mrs. Anderson's students right here, there should be, wait a minute, maybe I didn't save it. How did Gregory get in if I didn't save it? Let's see. Let's try this again. Let's look at it from the student view. Student view, Mrs. Anderson students. It says welcome right there. And then click on Friday, April 2nd.
Okay.
And that'll be the link. If not, let me know.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. All right, so we get 5 roots to where were we? All right, so we divide by √3 to get to that short leg. We divide by 2 to get to the short leg. You always got to know the short leg pretty much, okay? So either you already know it or you find it, or if we jump from long leg to hypotenuse, you can't jump directly between these two. You've got to go through the short leg to get there. All right, so let's take a look at one, and we're just going to solve for the short leg first. So there are 2 cases I'll give you. Let's suppose we make this 5, and this is a 30, 60, 90. And then let's make another one here. We got 30, 60, 90, and we're going to say that this is root, let's do root 6 right here. And so in both cases, we're trying to solve for x. I'll call this one x, this one y. So I'll give you a second to look at that, give the young lady that just walked through a chance to log in. We've got someone else in the room I'm going to help. So you got like 3 or 4 minutes to try that out. I'll pause the video so that way somebody's watching from home, they don't have to sit through this downtime right here. Not downtime for you, but downtime for them watching. So they can pause at home and try it. Recording. So just to kind of review what we talked about with 30, 60, 90s. I said memorize this one. Once again, the short side is 1. The hypotenuse this time is 2, not root 2 like the 45, 45, 90, but just 2. And then the long leg is root 3. So we always want to figure out the short leg no matter what. And that's actually what I'm having you do on these two, is just figure out what is the short leg here. If you know the hypotenuse, you can divide the hypotenuse by just the number 2 and you get the short leg. Or if you know the long leg, you can divide it by root 3 and get the short leg. So let's see that in action right here. Right here we know the hypotenuse is 5. So if I divide 5 by 2, I'll get the short leg. And so the short leg becomes 5 over 2. That's your value for x there. If you know the long leg and you're wanting to know the short leg, then I'm going to divide this guy right here by root 3. So I want to divide by root 3. Now there's a little bit more work to do here because when I write it as a fraction, I get root 6 over root 3. And especially I know in Delta math, I'm sure Mrs. Anderson, you know, a lot of math teachers do not like radicals in the denominator. Why? I don't know. They just don't like it. So we need to get rid of that radical, and we get rid of it by multiplying by 1. So as you can see, I got the number 1 written right here. It doesn't look like the number 1, but it is, I know. So you got root 3 divided by root 3. That's the same thing as 1. Why did I choose to make 1 look like that? Because I want to get rid of that root 3 right here. If this were like a root 7, it'd be root 7 over root 7 there. So when I multiply root 3 times root 3, I get root 9. And root 6 times root 3 is root 18. Now, the square root of 9, I'm going to carry this on down below right here. The square root of 9 is equal to 3. And we get root 18 in the top. Now, this root 18 can be broken down as well. Once again, math teachers like for you to do what we call simplest radical form. So always check, can we break this up any further? Root 18 can be divided up into root 3 times root 6. And root 6 can be divided up into root 3 times root 2. So what I end up with here is a pair of root 3s. And root 3 times root 3, we learned it earlier, is root 9, which equals 3. A lot of times in math class, though, you'll see it written out like this. So your teacher will write it out like this. And you're like, why is she not putting the radicals there? Or why is he not putting the radicals there? It's just because it's a lot to write, you know. We try to save our markers. And they say, oh, there's a pair of 3s, so that just becomes 3. The reason why that works is because it's actually root 9, which is 3. But we got this leftover root 2 here. It goes right here. So you end up with 3 times root 2 over 3. Hey, check that out. Those 3's cancel, and your answer here is just root 2. So this just becomes root 2. And, you know, I just realized I took a way more complicated route than I needed to, because if you'd have started right here, root 6 over root 3 is the same thing as root 6 over 3. And that equals root 2 as well. So you could, that's a lot easier, isn't it? But either way, I think it's good to talk about rationalizing in simplest radical form, because there will be times when you can't do that little trick there and just say, oh, that's equal to root 2. So that's helpful to know. All right, let's look at one more before you leave today. Sorry, we didn't get a chance to get to trigonometry. We'll try to record maybe another one when we get back from break on trigonometry. Or if you're just like, you know what, I really need to learn trig today before I take my test, you just send me a chat, a private chat there, and say, hey, can you meet me sometime today? Maybe we can meet at lunch and I can go over trig with you before you take the test. I don't want you taking the test if you're not super comfortable with it. I'll try to meet you sometime today to go over some trigonometry. But let's look at one more while we're on the topic of special rights. And last time I had you find out the short side. This time I'm going to give you something like, let's go with 26 right here. And I want you to figure out the long side of this thing. So see if you can remember how to do that. And then I'll show you how to do it using my little tricks there, see if that helps you. So I'm gonna pause the video. I'll be back in like 2 minutes. Like I said, I got a few students in here I'm helping in class. So let me see here, pause this, you try out this, and I'll be back in like 2 minutes. All right, I know a few of you probably got some places to go, so I'm gonna go through this real fast. Normally I like to call on people, but we haven't had much time to do it today, so that's fine. To go from here to here, notice I don't have a direct link between these two. So to go from here to here, we need to figure out the short side first. So what I'm going to first do is take this 26, and this marker's dead, but I'm going to take this 26 and I'm going to divide it by 2 to get the short side. So that gives me 13 there. So that's the short side. And then to go from the short side to root 3, I need to multiply by root 3. Notice that this is root 3 times bigger than the short side. So this x right here is equal to 13 times the root of 3. And that's your answer. So if you know those two triangles, you got to memorize these two. 1, 1, root 2, and 1, 2, root 3. Remember, root 3 is less than 2, the number 2. Don't accidentally put a root over that. I think it will make special rights a whole lot easier for you. And so hopefully that was helpful for you today, okay? Any questions before you go today? Does somebody want to be like, hey, let's meet about trig later on? Hold on, let me stop the recording. Goodbye to you at home.